Hey everyone, and welcome to this Marvel Snap guide. We're going to talk about 10 unique deck lists of different archetypes that are all Pool 3 exclusive. That means that they're not going to have Pool 4 or Pool 5 cards. These are Pool 3 exclusive deck lists that you can utilize. And the great thing about it, we've recently had 4 cards drop down from Series 4 to 3. They include She-Hulk, Titania, Luke Cage, and of course Absorbing Man, and those cards will find their way into these deck lists because they're Pool 3 now. Now admittedly, Luke Cage and Titania are a little more difficult to fit in, but Absorbing Man and She-Hulk, as featured on the screen, are very good substitutions and add-ins for many of these decks. With that being said, we're going to be talking about 10 individual deck lists. If you find this video helpful, it would mean the world to me if you'd hit the like button. Let's get started with deck number 1. Now I'm already showing She-Hulk on the screen here, but what I'll show you here is that the first deck is a standard high value cards deck list. The idea of using kind of like high value cards or good card archetypes has become very paramount in the meta for Marvel Snap. What this deck list utilizes is essentially a combination of a variety of different cards. Utilizing Sunspot to good effectiveness with armor. You can actually sub out Magneto if you don't have it and add Infinite, by the way. Infinite represents a very good substitution. If you don't have She-Hulk, a card that I would suggest is Spider-Woman. Spider-Woman's actually a very good card. A lot of value, 5/7 right off the board. You hit one other card, it's basically a 5/8, which gives you a lot of value as well. And a lot of these deck lists that you're facing, or broods and whatnot, will have multiple kind of cards in the location. So Spider-Woman's going to give you more value than you'd expect. Cosmo's an excellent counter card, reliable in the current meta. You definitely want Shang-Chi in your list for those Devil Dinosaurs and the Shuri style players. And of course, because we're playing high value cards, cards like Maximus, which can be played on top of the Cosmo to prevent the opponent from drawing 2 additional cards. Polaris, which creates some disruption, but most importantly is a 3/5, should give you this type of initiative, which allows you to slide Cosmo in on turn 6 under Silver Surfer decks, or allow you to get additional information from your White Queen, scout, and then make a play that's most appropriate on turn 5 or 6. You also, because it's a high value list, you can either have one location get 12 power with Magneto while disrupting 3 and 4 cost cards, or you can add a total of 15 power on the board, 5 in each location with Dr. Doom and his Doombots. Regardless, this is an excellent list if you're looking to create some high value synergy. Along with the Battle Mode patch came a massive buff to one of the most iconic heroes in Marvel, and that is Wolverine. Now, when Wolverine is discarded or destroyed, it regenerates with a random location with +2 power. That is amazing. And so, while still experimental, a lot of people are experimenting with these Wolverine-based destroy lists. So what you've got here is a destroy kind of like Bayro wave list, which is kind of really effective and does a lot to kind of obviously use Wolverine in the early and mid game, and then close with the Arrow, She-Hulk, and Death. Essentially, the way this deck list works is, by the way, you can actually sub in Squirrel Girl if you need more kills for the Death if you wish. However, what you're doing here is you're playing your usual stuff. You're playing, Yondu to get that scouting information, destroy a card, which helps the Death. You got Hood, which gets taken out by the Killmonger. Just be very aware of your demon. Bucky Barnes, Carnage. Carnage can hit Wolverine. You can actually Venom the Wolverine to, of course, get additional value as well. Now, the major play here is the turn 5. Now, this is how this deck list works. On turn 5, you play Wave. You conserve that 2 extra energy. So now what happens is all cards cost 4 next turn, but you have a total of 6 mana. If you conserve 2, She-Hulk becomes a 2. Then what happens is if you've destroyed cards, basically, Death becomes free because you basically only have to destroy 4 for Death to be basically 0. And then with the additional 4 energy left over, you can play Arrow. So this deck allows you to play Arrow, She-Hulk, and Death all on turn 6, which is an absolutely insane value play, especially when you play She-Hulk to win one lane, Death to win another, and then you use Arrow to disrupt the enemy's cards and force them into a location that makes them lose. So that is the power of this particular Wolverine Destroy list. One of the most common requests I get as a content creator are decks that involve Patriot, a card that gives cards with no ability +2 power. When coupled with cards like Mystique, which double that ability to basically be +4, suddenly you're in a situation where you get a whole ton of value here. And cards like Wasp, which has no ability, Squirrel Girl's Squirrels, which have no abilities, Misty Knight, which a lot of new players are like, why is Misty Knight so bad at 1/2 with nothing? Like, why would I play Misty Knight when I can play Iceman or Korg, right? Well, Patriot's why. Shocker's the same, right? Why would you play Shocker when you can play Colossus? Patriot's why. And what's interesting about this deck list is you are using Coccia to buff all the ones. You're using Blue Marvel to buff them as well. You have the onslaught capability of doubling the ongoing ability of Mystique, Patriot, Blue Marvel, Coccia, whatever it is. You have Debris that's scattering rocks everywhere. But most importantly, you also have the Ultron finisher, which basically puts these drones down, which have no effect, which benefit from Blue Marvel. They benefit from Patriot and Mystique if they're comboed together. They benefit from Coccia. So suddenly, you're able to fill the board with all these little guys, and they can take an opponent by surprise. And a 6/8 Ultron ain't too shabby itself. This is a very reliable and straightforward deck list for Patriot, but one that I think will find you some success. Zero is one of those cards that when you unlocks a whole new archetype of gameplay. And when you use Zero, which removes the abilities of the next card you play, you are able to access cards like Ebony Maw more reliably without the downside. A 1/7 where you can basically play there, perfect, right? Why wouldn't you like Ebony Maw? Provided you draw him before turn 3. You got Red Skull, who provides 2 additional power to enemy units on the other side. Well, that sucks. Not if you play Zero. And most importantly, the way this deck list works is it's actually a Zero Zoo, which is kind of like really emerging in the current meta. I like the idea of getting that Nightcrawler back in there. Nightcrawler is an absolutely incredible card. You also have, of course, the Ant-Man, which benefits from being zooed out with. You protect your ones with the armor as well. It's a standard zoo list. You got the anti-Silver Surfer and on reveal with your Cosmo. But most importantly, you have a big boy in Magneto for the disruption and the play on turn 6. But now let's say you use Zero to basically remove the Ebony Maw condition and you play Ebony Maw as a 1/7. That's high value. You also have Dracula. The benefit to Dracula is that with Dracula hits Red Skull, it takes the power, but not the ongoing ability. So if you've not zeroed out the ongoing ability of Red Skull and it's in your hand and Dracula hits it, it becomes a 15, but the opposing cards do not get +2 power because it's Dracula that took it, not Red Skull. So that's something to bear in mind, and it's one of the things that makes this deck list so successful. I've got to be honest with you, there's no way I could have made a deck list video with 10 different decks and not featured Devil Dinosaur. Devil Dinosaur is one of those cards that is literally in Pool 1. You could play Devil Dinosaur consistently from Pool 1 to Pool 2 to Pool 3 and never look away because it's always relevant. It's actually, in my opinion, one of the best cards in the game. So this deck list is a Series 3 version of Devil Dinosaur. Now, there are so many variations of this, okay? One thing I'll say is that Devil Dinosaur plays really well with Arnim Zola. If you have Arnim Zola, Devil Dinosaur becomes a great card because what you can do is you can actually Arnim Zola the Devil Dinosaur, split it up, provided you have initiative and they don't Cosmo or something like that, and you get 2 Devil Dinosaurs for the price of 1. That's great. But this particular deck list is a little more like vanilla, okay? The Arnim Zola is a little more exciting. However, if you've got Daredevil, you can run Professor X. If you don't have Daredevil and you don't want to run Professor X, then you look towards someone like Zola. However, this is like a little bit safer because you got the Daredevil turn 5 play with Professor X. You'll notice we're not running a 6. That's because you might pull a 6 from the opposing hand, which is great with White Queen. But most importantly, you kind of want to use Moon Girl to replicate your Devil Dinosaur. So not only is your hand big, but you'll have a dinosaur to play on 5 and then a dinosaur to play on 6, right? Conversely, you can play a dinosaur on 5 and copy the power with Mystique to gain the power of the Devil Dinosaur. Just be very aware that Mystique will not have the +3 that the Devil Dinosaur has, right? So the math is whatever the Devil Dinosaur is, -3, and obviously actually -5 technically because you're playing a card out of your hand, which includes Mystique. So Mystique is a little less reliable. It's 3 cost. I mean, you could technically use someone like Taskmaster to get more value, but it's more expensive, right? So it's another option in the event that you don't have all the cards. Regardless, though, this is a really good deck list. I really do enjoy it. You have just some disruption with Cable, of course, and overall, Devil Dinosaur is a card that'll never steer you wrong. Pool 3 Hela discard is a ton of fun. Now, it's a bit of a casino play, I'll be honest with you, but it has some recently buffed cards like Black Cat, which used to be a 3/6. Now it's a free discard as a 3/7. Beautiful, right? You've got cards that are just unbelievable at discarding a ton, like Hell Cow. You got the Invisible Woman, and that's important here, because what you do is you play Invisible Woman, and then you play your discard cards on top of Invisible Woman, which protects your Hela. Now, you don't need to do that if Hela's not in your hand, but if Hela's in your hand, it's important you play your discard cards on top of Invisible Woman, and then play Hela on top of your Invisible Woman. So what it does is it prevents you from discarding your Hela by accident and then crying at your keyboard. However, this deck list, while being pretty vanilla, has a bunch of changes that can be made. Like if you don't have Giganto, you can just put Hulk there, right? You just need big bodies here, right? That's really what you need. So any of the massive 6-drops, like you can put She-Hulk in for death. You can put Magneto in for, well, you'll have Infinite, but, you know, just don't put in Agatha, by the way. That's a whole different deck we'll talk about another time. But what you want to do is you want to put big boys here in because you want to discard them. You are getting the discard from Black Cat. Now, what I like to do as well is I like having Ebony Maw not to necessarily play on turn 1, which you could if you want because the Hela will access that location regardless. But when you play Colleen Wing, who's very powerful as a 2/4, it basically guarantees that you discard the Ebony Maw in your hand, even if it's after turn 3. So, you know, you draw Ebony Maw on turn 4, and on turn 5, you don't have a good play, like you don't have your Captain Marvel or whatever. You play Colleen Wing, and it discards a 1/7 for Hela, which is huge, right? The reason why Captain Marvel's in this list is because the Hela discard can be a little unreliable. It's like a random generation, right? So it randomly kind of puts cards in locations. Captain Marvel mitigates that randomness slightly by allowing you to have a card that'll say, oh, too many cards went here, I'll fly over there and win the game, right? So Captain Marvel is super clutch for these Hela discard decks. The most important thing to understand, however, is you've got to protect Hela. Do not discard Hela, because if you do, you're going to have a bad time. One thing I'll say about Mr. Negative is that there are a ton of different variations of a Mr. Negative deck. You could very easily use this as kind of like a groundwork and then make substitutions as you wish. Now, with Mr. Negative, I want to give you something that's a little more vanilla. The major combinations with Mr. Negative go as follows. First of all, you want to be able to play Iron Man as a 0/5 if you can. It's absolutely insane when you're considering you're doubling the power at the location as well. But then you want to play Mystique to follow that up, right? The Iron Man Mystique combination with Mr. Negative is ridiculous because remember, Mystique becomes a 0/3 that gets doubled, and you have the Iron Man, which is 0/5, which gets doubled by itself. So it's already insane. Huge combo. The other combo you need to be very aware of here is Psylocke on turn 2 into a turn 4 Mr. Negative. Actually, I should say turn 3 Mr. Negative. Psylocke on turn 2 allows you to play Mr. Negative a turn early, which is basically a snap condition for this deck. From there, we have the Angela, which is just a great card for negative deck lists because basically it's a 2/0 at worst, a 0/2 at best, and then you just pump it like crazy as you kind of zoo or miracle on turn 6 or 7, which is what Magic does. Magic's kind of optional, but with negative decks, Magic is really beneficial because you want to draw more negative cards, right? So that's why getting it out negative out on turn 3 is so valuable. So if you play Magic, not only are you extending the game to give you more of a chance to kind of do a miracle-based play, but what you're doing is you're drawing another negative card, which is so valuable because like any card you draw negative, like Ironheart, 0/3 is like one of the best cards in the game. Like that's what happens with negative cards. They flip it on its head and they become absolutely insane cards, right? So that extra turn and that extra draw just gives you more ammo to win the game. Mr. Negative is all about winning on that last turn. And I include Wolfsbane here, and you could swap Wolfsbane out, but like Wolfsbane's really good. Like it's just a really good card in negative decks, a 3/1. She can put up a ton of power really fast, right? And gives you a play on turn 3 if you don't have anything else. And Goose is a good play. I've seen Mojo in this spot, you know, Mojo, Scorpion, whatever. I like Goose because Goose like allows you to like kind of set up a situation where, like, first of all, if it gets negative, it's not a big deal. But if you play Goose, they can't play 4, 5, or 6 cards cost at that. The way I said that was a little funny, but you get what I meant. They can't play 4, 5, or 6 cost cards at that location, but you can slide like a 0/5 Iron Man in there, a 0/3 Mystique in there. You can slide a 1/3 Bishop in there. You know what I mean? So there's access that you'll get that they may not be able to, and allows you to kind of conserve some energy for other lanes while kind of winning the Goose lane. Regardless, though, Mr. Negative decks are really popular. They're a little tricky to pilot, and they'll take some practice, but this is one that'll get you going. One of my absolute favorite decks to play is Electro Ramp, and the thing I love about this deck list, and honestly, I could have started with deck number 1 with this, I should have maybe, because this deck is so good, and I have access to Series 4, Series 5, I got tons of cards. When it comes right down to it, I almost never play the Series 4 or 5 cards in Electro Ramp, because you just don't need them. This is good enough, and I'm telling you right now, not even good enough, it's almost preferred. Like right now as of recording, I don't know if I'd change anything here. I think this is a great deck list, and to be able to get there in pool 3 is phenomenal. And you have other options too. Like if you don't have, well, you're gonna have Vision, but if you don't have Arrow, you can put Spider-Woman. Like you put other cards. There's so many high impact cards, but like Iceman, Scorpion, both pool 2, Lizard pool 1. You got the Electro Wave, which are both pool 3, but they're great. And if you don't have one of them, you can kind of survive with just one, right? You don't need both. I like both with Chavez because what it allows you to do is it almost guarantees that you're going to have at least Electro or Wave on turn 3. So that on turn 4, you can play a 5-drop like Leech, which is just destroys combo decks. Arrow, which is incredibly disruptive. If you don't have Arrow, you can play someone like Spider-Woman and another, very high value 5 cost. Vision, which is great because it allows you to play mobility and get into the head of the opponent. And then turn 5, I love Dr. Doom. And then turn 6, Odin. It's so much power. 15 power on the board on turn 5. And then you literally put, even more power on the board. You basically put, 18 power on the board with the Odin. Odin comes on top and procs the Doombots again. It's just an absolute disaster for your opponent to deal with, and you even have the disruption of Magneto if you so choose. Electro Ramp is by far one of my favorite decks to play, and you can play it almost exclusively with Pool 3 cards. Let's say you want to have fun playing a video game. What is that? What's fun? But anyways, let's say you want to have fun playing Marvel Snap, which I mean, it's an admirable goal. If you're doing that, you got to play Lockjaw on reveal. Like, it could be tilting, don't get me wrong, but when this thing high rolls, you're going to feel like an absolute champion. You're going to feel like the king, because when Lockjaw blesses you, okay, when this dog blesses you, it's a good doggo, and when it does well for you, you are going to bring out huge value here. Now, with Lockjaw, honestly, this deck list has so many different variations of it. We have, like, you can take out someone like Nightcrawler, you can add someone like Sunspot, and then you can take out like a Giganto, and you can add Infinite to have the Infinite Sunspot combination. You just need big bodies here to pull. Chavez is mandatory because not only does it allow you to get the Lockjaw more consistently on turn 3, but it's always a consistent hit for your Lockjaw and for your Jubilee, because if you play Jubilee into Lockjaw, Jubilee pulls a card, and then Jubilee gets pulled in by the Lockjaw and pulls another one. So provided that Chavez doesn't get drawn until turn 6, it's a consistent target for both Jubilee and for Lockjaw, which is key. Okay, then you got the Doom, which is incredible, and a card that I like I just mentioned prior, is Odin as well. Odin could be really good in these lists as well. So you don't have Magneto, you don't have Giganto, you can use Odin as well. Hulk is good too. Jane Foster's great. If you don't have Jane Foster, you can substitute her, but the main reason why seeing Jane Foster is really good is because you get to pull Wasp out. So you play Jane Foster, and then you pull Wasp into your hand, and you get to pull the Mjolnir into your hand as well. And the nice thing about both Mjolnir and Wasp, there's almost a tongue twister there, is that you can play them directly into Lockjaw for free, and they swipe cards back, right? So it's pretty cool how that works. This is a super fun deck list to play, and one that I really recommend. Look at this absolute bad boy. You know what this is? This is a win condition. And what we're looking at right now is Ongoing Destroyer, deck number 10. What you're doing here is you're playing a bunch of ongoing cards. You'll notice pretty much they all have ongoing abilities, with the exception of Destroyer, who tends to destroy. So what you're going to do is you're going to play Ant-Man and Armor, which protects your cards, obviously, from the Destroyer, because cards can't be destroyed. Colossus can be played in the lane you intend to win with Destroyer, by the way. Claw gives you access to the location as well on the right, which can be good if you want more power for your Destroyer. You also got Professor X, which locks the location down and, most importantly, protects the cards from being destroyed in that location. If you undershoot Professor X and they're beating you there, guess what? You've got Spectrum, and all the ongoing cards get +2 power. There are multiple win conditions here. Basically, you're playing to win 2 locations. Warpath is great because you get, and if there's an empty lane, what there should be in this deck, you're going to have +4 power, 4/9, absolutely insane, and that's going to be in the Armored or Professor X location. And the nice thing about that is that you're contesting the other location with Destroyer, and if you find it better, you can just play Spectrum. You don't have to destroy everything if you don't need to. An important combination as well here is Cosmo allows you to not only counter on reveal based deck lists, but Cosmo also gives you the option to play Destroyer, but not actually destroy your other cards, because it'll land on top of the Cosmo, but its on reveal will not occur. So it gives you a couple variable options to winning the game, which I think is super important in Marvel Snap. I hope this video helped you guys. Smash the like button if you'd like to support the series and more content like this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I've got another video for you down below, which I hope you check out. We're making a lot of fun content on this channel, and once again, I want to thank you for watching. See you guys in the next Marvel Snap video.